Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. It is time for another awesome episode of EP Live. We have a fantastic guest lined up for you. His name is Corey Robson, and he's a cinematographer or director of photography. We'll figure that out when we get him on a little bit later. But we've got a rundown to get to, and this one is going out to the Memory Card, who says it looks like Ruby is going to be the next big video game reviewer on EPN because she had some fantastic comments about Yoshi's what's it called? Yoshi's Crafted World, which we're going to be taking a look at very soon. But right now, let's get started with your rundown. This summer, gamers will be able to travel back in time to a time when hating Nazis was uncontroversial. The 1980s. Bethesda and developer Machine Games have announced that Wolfenstein Youngblood will hit the PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch on July 26th. First announced at E3 last year, Youngblood takes place 20 years after the last game during an alternate history version of the 1980s. Players will take the role of the twin daughters of the franchise hero, B.J. Blazkowicz, as they struggle to find their father and do what else? As much Nazi killing as possible. Because there are two main characters, the game will have a strong emphasis on co-op, and there will even be a special buddy pass that lets you play with friends even if they don't own a copy of the game themselves. Youngblood isn't the only new Wolfenstein game on the way. Machine Games is also working on a separate project called Wolfenstein Cyber Pilot, which is a VR game where players jump into the cockpit of different mechs. No release date yet for that, and it's amazing to see Machine Games kind of take the mantle of what the Wolfenstein franchise has laid for us over many, many years. An incredible series, and they're doing an immense justice to the quality of this franchise. Very, very big fan of what Machine Games has been up to, and I'm psyched to see what they do with these new games. I'm even down for Wolfenstein in VR. Are you kidding me? That sounds awesome. Now, the makers of the Divinity games are making a very tactical decision. Larian Studios has announced that Divinity Fallen Heroes is an all-new entry in their long-running RPG series, and it aims to put a fresh, more tactical spin on the gameplay. Rather than spending most of your time meeting new characters and exploring, Fallen Heroes will send you out on specific missions where you command squads of 4 in turn-based combat, similar to the XCOM franchise. The developers hope the game will serve as a blend between the traditional RPG mechanics of the previous games with the new, more strategic combat, so hopefully longtime fans will like it. Divinity Fallen Heroes launches later this year. I think this sounds phenomenal. I am a fan of what the Divinity titles in the past, and Larian is incredibly solid, and if they throw in all of that fantastic storytelling that they put into their previous games and let us do some turn-based combat like that, I think this is going to be super, super cool, and it does sound like something that would be perfect on the Switch. Just going to throw that little my hat in the ring for one of those things. I think turn-based games on the Switch are a perfect fit. All right, you got to woo for that. All right, the hype machine for Borderlands 3 is starting to rev up. Gearbox Software has released a new video teasing an upcoming project, and although they don't specifically say that it's Borderlands 3, it's pretty obvious that it's Borderlands 3. They've been hinting that the game is on the way for several years and have scheduled a presentation at PAX East tomorrow, so we're almost certainly going to be getting our first look then. Borderlands 2 was released way back in 2012, but since then there have been several spin-offs like the pre-sequel, which was awesome, and the recent VR version, which almost made me barf. It will be interesting to see what features the new game might introduce to keep the franchise fresh. Yeah, and when Borderlands 2 came out, there wasn't this deluge of looter shooters out there that kind of borrowed this RPG mechanic and aesthetic that Borderlands didn't invent. I think you could probably throw back to the Diablo games for getting us hooked on that kind of compulsion. But Borderlands definitely surprised the world with its sense of humor and, your obsessive sort of focus on collecting all the weapons and meeting all the different characters. And now, though, we've got lots of different options. We've got Anthem out there. We've got Destiny, of course, and The Division 2, which is my current love affair. So it's a different world now. And, of course, there's been lots of controversy swirling around Randy Pitchford board and Gearbox over the years. So it'll be interesting to see if the game could come out from the shadow of all that and still wow everybody. I think at its core, Borderlands is such a phenomenal franchise with such great characters and such an awesome sense of humor that it is going to be great. My fingers are crossed. I can't wait to see more. So we'll have news on that very soon. Now, the maker of the critically acclaimed game and interactive movie, Her Story, has another story to tell. Her Story director Sam Barlow has unveiled a new game called Telling Lies. Like Her Story, players will search through live-action video featuring real actors with the goal of finding clues that help you unravel a big secret. The game promises to be much bigger than Her Story, with 4 central characters instead of 1, meaning a more complicated story and more mysteries to uncover. Telling Lies will hit desktop machines and smartphones later this year. I love this Sam Barlow guy. He is incredibly ambitious. I met him where did I meet him? Portsmouth, England. He was working at Climax way back in the day. I think he was working on a Hellboy game or something like that, but he was just like young developer dude guy. And then he went off and made Her Story kind of on his own. He cast all the people, wrote the scripts, did the whole kind of, deep dive into talking about, using live action video to tell a story and make that a video game. And it was a massive success and very cool. And we raved about it on Reviews on the Run. And all of us were really impressed with what this imaginative person was able to do. And since then, he's been courted by Hollywood, and he's worked on lots of other cool projects. And he hasn't let it go to his head. He is still very much just a creative, ambitious, aspiring inventor out there that's trying to kind of shake things up. So I'm looking forward to checking out Telling Lies, and I remain a big Sam Barlow fan. All right, you guys, it is time to take a look back at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day in Everything Cool for March 27th. On this day in 2011, Nintendo gave Western gamers a new dimension. The handheld 3DS was released in North America and Europe following its launch a month earlier in Japan, offering glasses-free stereoscopic 3D visuals. The system actually took a while to get going. It only sold about 3.6 million units in its first year, forcing Nintendo to give it a steep price cut down to $170 US. That did the trick, and the 3DS became a huge hit, and it has since sold more than 70 million units and more than 100 million games. The fact that Nintendo has updated the 3DS several times with new models and skins has also helped sales. It's still going strong to this day. Is that a 3DS in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? March 27th, 1998 saw one of the most important breakthroughs in medical history. Viagra was approved by the U.S. government's FDA, paving the way for it to be sold across the country and eventually worldwide. The drug is designed as a treatment for male impotence, the first pill of its kind, and it also has more traditional medical applications like being used as a treatment for hypertension. Viagra has also served as the punchline for countless jokes and gags, and it's hard to imagine how humanity survived without it for so long. Very hard, indeed. On March 27, 1976, one of the most recognizable people in the computer industry made a name for himself. A 20-year-old Harvard student named Bill Gates gave the opening address at the first annual World Altair Computer Convention in New Mexico. Gates was there because even though he was still a student, he had already helped develop the new version of the basic programming language used on the Altair 8800, a machine widely considered to be the first personal computer. He wasn't there just to be nice, though. Gates and his colleague Paul Allen were angry that so many Altair hobbyists were blatantly pirating their basic software. At the time, the concept of paying for software the same way you pay for hardware wasn't something that most people had considered, but Gates and Allen were some of the first people to change that. A few years later, they inked a deal to sell an operating system and accompanying software for IBM machines through their new company Microsoft, and the rest is history. Yes, we have a little bit of everything on Electric Playground. That was the idea right from the start, and it's nice to kind of spread our wings and talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Right now, we are going to find out how to shoot some great-looking movies and television shows. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Corey Robson, who is a director of photography and a cinematographer. Come on up, Corey. How you doing, my friend?
Good, how are you?
I'm very good. Now, Corey and I actually have known each other for a bunch of years, but we've never had a discussion in front of the camera, and I was just waiting, I guess, for the right time to do that. and I thought that this was going to be a perfect place to do that. We're in the Vancouver Film School, which is at 390 West Hastings in Vancouver, if you're ever out in the Vancouver area.
Yeah, it's a great space.
And you have shot all over this area, haven't you?
Yeah, many times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arrow is one of the big projects that you've worked on in your career.
Yeah.
How long did you work on Arrow?
I was on Arrow for 5 years. We started on the pilot. I was the digital imaging technician at the beginning. And then, season 3, I took over as one of the directors of photography.
Awesome. So, What's cool about the way that you worked on Arrow, though, you also worked on Smallville, too. Yeah. And were you were doing digital imaging technology back then, too?
Yeah. So
they call that the DIT, right? Or,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so explain what that is.
That's a position for the person that handles all the media on the show. They are in charge of helping the directors of photography create unique looks for each scene, and just coming up with potential looks that they just don't have time to develop on the day themselves. So it's like it works. You work closely with the lighting to try and bring out what they're really trying to go for in the scene.
Is that a position to try to speed up the process of getting everything done? Is that something? Because television works so quickly, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Is that what it's about? Is finding the technology to get the stuff looking as good as possible, as quickly as possible?
Yeah, exactly. When I first started, and it was pretty new, and I think it was a different role in those days. It was like the early 2000s when the HD cams were first coming out. Yeah. And you kind of had to commit to the look a lot more than you did with later cameras. Sure. Because it was getting burned onto the tape. So back then you had to be very careful with what you did because it was permanent and there was not much going back from it once you committed. So, but over time it changed into being a non-destructive process, which was great. It allowed a lot more freedom to experiment, and that was on top of your duties of like maintaining the media integrity. Yeah. And making multiple copies for everybody, and making sure that there's insurance backups and that sort of stuff. But which I was just I sort of ended when I finished. It was more of a way to help cinematographers
get their look,
I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
That's awesome. Did you know that you were going to be a director of photography, or explain what the difference is between DOP and cinematography? Okay.
It's a tough one.
What do you prefer?
Well, I think director of photography is probably the more common term in Canada, anyway.
Okay.
But I think it feels like it's somewhat of a limiting title.
Okay, yeah.
We're really not doing stills photography, so
right.
It sort of involves a lot more than that, and I think cinematographer is a more all-encompassing kind of title.
Yeah, for sure.
For it, so that's sort of
it's easier to say too.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so.
So we're going to stick with cinematography.
Yeah.
Did you know you were going to be a cinematographer when you were in film school back in the day?
That's what I was aiming for.
Okay.
Yeah, I always felt very comfortable with cameras. When I was a kid, my dad was one of the first around to have a Sony Betacam. Yeah. And when he was at work, I would play with it. And
was he in the business?
No, not at all. But he just bought it for something to do, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But that's
awesome.
But it was fun. So by the time I finished high school, I was pretty familiar with digital cameras, and then my brother actually got me in the business. So he was a kid actor and landed a role in a Jack Palance movie that was being shot in Regina.
No way.
And so I got to go visit set, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And then I just pursued things after that.
Is he still acting?
No.
Oh, okay, no. Cool. Okay, well, talk to me about, you worked on Smallville, which I loved.
Yep.
I loved that show.
Yeah.
And then you saw Arrow coming, which I think was a bit of a surprise how successful it was. Did you guys know, like when you were shooting the pilot and putting the first episodes together, did you know how big it was going to be?
No, but, well, it felt pretty special at the time, but we didn't know it would grow into like this multiverse of different projects.
Yeah. Were you skeptical because you had been a part of Smallville and you maybe felt like it had crested already and they were trying to kind of get fire from the same place?
I think so. I think everybody was kind of skeptical because what they were trying to do was take the whole action element of Smallville and take it up a notch and have it more grounded in reality, which all those things are great, but they take a lot more time.
Yes.
And we didn't have they didn't want to do it with visual effects as much,
right?
Because of the Green Arrow's character is just not that kind of character.
Yes.
And when they shot the pilot, it just worked so well.
Yeah.
Like, they had a great creative team on that pilot, and they obviously had a lot of success.
So you worked on the show for 5 years, and you started it as a DIT.
Yep.
And then when did you make the move over to cinematography?
It started season 3, so
Okay.
that was Glenn Winter, who was one of the DPs on the show. He took off to just direct full time.
Yep.
And so I was.
So he was the DOP, or he was the cinematographer, and then he
there's
relinquished
two.
the position.
Yeah, with a lot of shows, there's 2 cinematographers. So there's Gord Verhoeven was the other one.
Okay.
And Glenn Winter was the one that I replaced. So Glenn went off to do Flash, directing the pilot, and that sort of left a little spot for me to get in.
That's awesome.
And then he decided to just direct full time the next season. So then that fell into place.
I'm a fan of the whole Arrowverse, so I watch
Yeah.
all of these shows, and it's incredible how they've grown and how they've become a big part of the production in the city.
Oh yeah.
Was there a rivalry between the different production camps? You know, would you be looking at what the Flash team was doing and the Supergirl team was doing? Is, well, we got to make this, we got to tweak this? Or?
You know, honestly, no.
No.
We were very close to the Flash crews because we were right across the street from each other. But,
yeah.
But no, we would all sort of collaborate on the crossover episodes, and exchange notes and things like that. But it was never. We sort of wanted to keep Arrow looking like Arrow, and Flash was a little more light and different in that way. So it sort of kept its look to itself. And yeah, I think they carved out a really good, unique look for each show.
You did, absolutely. And I want to talk about that. Like, how do you know what direction to go, and how do you kind of create? You almost have to create like a visual style guide or a Bible for the way that these shows are supposed to look, and they're supposed to also kind of reflect the comic books to a degree too, right?
Yeah, they do try to stay true to the comic element of it for sure.
Yeah.
But I was in a position where the look was already established by the time I started shooting.
Sure.
So I was just trying to keep things consistent to what was already done. But at the same time, the producers were extremely generous with their support and just saying, hey, you know what, if it looks cool, go for it.
Yeah.
Try new things. Let's keep pushing this as far as we can to see what you can do. And they were great.
Awesome.
I don't know.
You guys, the show, like your show, Arrow, doesn't really rely, or your old show, doesn't really rely on visual effects as much as Supergirl or as Flash does, but there is a tremendous amount of stunt work.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a tremendous, I think, amount of work to capture it on film, to get it on the day.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit of, what that meant for you guys. Like, what would be a typical start time, and how exhausted would you be shooting one of these, massive fight sequences?
Well, the show was definitely challenging because we have, 50 pages, around 50 pages of script to shoot every 8 or 9 days. And then,
wow.
But then on top of that, you have these every episode had at least 2 big stunt sequences.
Yeah.
And depending on the time of year, you've maybe got 8 or 9 hours of of darkness to shoot these in at night. So, so it was just a race to make sure that we could get it all done in time. And that took a lot of coordination on the prep side of things, with everybody making sure that they haven't missed anything. We're trying to get all the details in place so that when we show up and there's a lot of lives on the line, even with these stunts, that they go without a hitch.
Yeah.
And it just meant you had to really be on your game for prep.
Was there ever any big accident or anything like that while you were on the show?
Yeah, there were definitely some injuries. And unfortunately, but everybody's, the people that I'm thinking of, they recovered.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah. What happens, because none of us are really lucky enough to be on these sets, right? I know it's a tremendous amount of work for you guys, but I think everybody's kind of curious, what happens when something goes wrong? What do you guys do? And you've got still 45 pages to get done in 9 days.
Yeah. Well, there's always first aid on set, and if it's a big stunt, they'll have like an ambulance right there, just off camera, ready to go with technicians just standing by. And when it does happen, the crew stays away, let the professionals come in, take care of it, and that's sort of, just leave it to them.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then if we can continue, that's great. If not, we do something else.
You made a lot of episodes, and I'm wondering if they start to blur into each other, or if there is like one or two or a moment in the show that just stands out for you, that it has been maybe one of your career highlights.
Oh gosh, there's. Oh my God, I have to think about that for a while. Boy, I think. Oh my God.
Think about it.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
There's like 34 episodes. So.
Yes, I know you did tons, and I know it's hard work, and you're away from your family, and your family has to kind of give up you every night, right? Because you're off working all the time. Yeah, which isn't easy, and you're living the night owl thing, and you could kind of see that when Stephen Amell announced that it was time for him to move on. You could kind of see that he'd done lots and lots of these episodes. What was he to work? Like, what was he like to work with? Was he? Oh,
Stephen was great. Yeah. I just saw him in Whistler on the weekend, but he's always been pushing the show as far as he can. I don't think there's anybody else on set that has an encyclopedic knowledge of the show that he does. Like, he remembers continuity from season 1 on certain things. Like, he was very invested in the show and gave it his all every episode. And I think that after 7 years, is going into their 8th season is no small thing. Yeah. It's a huge amount of energy it takes to do that, and it's, especially with his workout routine, and just he's got that element too. We don't have that. We just
you don't have to take your shirts off when you're behind the camera.
No, exactly. It's a lot easier for us.
Tell me, what you guys do behind the camera physically, though, because you've got to kind of set these shots up to be as dynamic as a lot of the action that you're doing. You're putting the camera in weird places. You're trying to. Or cameras.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a lot of running and chasing and wearing, steady cam rigs and
Yeah, with that show for sure. It was a heavy action show, so there was lots of cameras on the stunt sequences, obviously, and lots of running around. You try to have all those things mapped out with your director in prep, so that when you show up on set, it's not a total surprise. Yeah. You hopefully have a really great game plan going in, and if nothing crazy happens, you'll make your day at the end of it. And
awesome. As a comic book fan, it was very special to watch Arrow kind of deliver, because I was one of those skeptical people that thought, okay, how are we going to have lightning strike twice? Smallville was cool, but Arrow was really fantastic, and it felt very special, and of course led to all of these other great shows too. Yeah. But how was it for you, as being a part of the the creative entourage, to put this all together, to sit down and watch the show air for the first time?
Oh, it was pretty cool. We had a screening, and it just felt more cinematic than we thought it would. It was very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were surprised when they greenlit it, especially after we saw it, but it was we didn't know it would go for 8 seasons. That's a pretty big feat. So.
Well, one of the things that I liked about the show too is that the family in front of the camera seemed to expand quite a bit.
Yep.
And we also saw that a lot of the people behind the camera, like James Bamford, who was part of the stunt crew, ended up becoming a director on the show as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he had a huge influence on the show over the years. I think he got killed on camera in the pilot, but behind the scenes, he's been a powerhouse, just pushing for bigger stunts. As much action as you can squeeze into every episode.
Totally.
Yeah, and they've kept them on, like, just, hey, do what you're doing, because it's working.
Yeah, so. And it's so necessary for that show. Now, you've been working on The Magicians on Sci-Fi, which also has a big physical component, but more special effects. And I'm curious, what are some of the lessons that you took from Arrow into The Magicians, and how is that show different from Arrow?
Well, I think I think anytime you have a script that has a lot of fantastical elements to it, like those two shows do, it sort of means that you have to keep your visuals more grounded, so that because you're trying to sell the audience something that is impossible, but as long as they can relate to something in the image that feels familiar, then they're gonna buy it. They're gonna go for it. So the challenge is to keep it all feeling as real as you can, and it's the same kind of thing where you've got 50 some pages of script to shoot, same sort of schedule. We actually have shorter hours on Magicians than we did on Arrow.
Okay.
But
less punches thrown.
Yeah, exactly. But there's so many different universes and worlds in that series that it makes it
is it
a bit of a pretzel in your mind sometimes to try to keep track of.
Right, because you're dealing with camera placement and lighting and tuning to kind of get the visual stuff on camera, but then it's all embellished on a computer somewhere else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We try to remember, okay, this world this is what the look is, and then you jump right into another world entirely in the next scene, like 20 minutes later, and it's sometimes a lot to keep track of, but
Totally.
It's so much fun. It's a very, very fun show to shoot.
Awesome. And it's filled with, it's a successful show, and it's filled, I've met a lot of the cast members too, and they're crazy. They're having a good time.
Yes, they are, yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a respect for you that you had come from Arrow that everybody was like, great, we got somebody that's been with a big hit show that's coming on board here?
I think so. I felt really welcomed when I was there.
Yeah.
I'm going back for season 5 in a few weeks, but yeah, it was a very welcome atmosphere, and
fantastic.
They gave me lots of time to catch up and memorize all the seasons and try and figure out how to continue it in an interesting way, because it's a pretty wild show. It's very unpredictable and really creative for myself.
Awesome. There's so many shows that get made in Vancouver.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of production, but I'm wondering if there's, we see the crossovers on the CW shows and stuff like that, but I'm wondering if, you see crew members or cast members at parties or hanging out. Is there any kind of social time with, or are the hours so heavy that you just want to get away from all that and just go home to your family?
I think during, well, not every episode, but a lot of times we're all just pretty burnt out.
Yeah.
So we do get together and hang out from time to time, but we have so much fun on set that it feels like when it's wrapped, it's like, okay, let's go home and try and get some sleep.
It's a social job.
It is, yeah.
And then you sort of package that away and go back to real life, reality for a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the cast that don't have families in Vancouver, they hang out more than some of the crew do.
Yes.
We're typically there longer than they are, and not always though, but yeah, it's get as much sleep as you can when you're shooting. That's for sure.
You mentioned that you got your start with technology that your dad had bought, and you sort of took over as your own, and you started to learn the ins and outs of shooting. We live now in an age of YouTube and incredible DSLR cameras and stuff, and I know lots of people that watch our programming want to know how they get into this stuff, and I'm wondering if you have any technology recommendations, if YouTube is a big factor now for trying to find a job like yours.
I think the first bit of advice would be to definitely don't worry about which camera you're shooting with. That's, I think, so overrated when it comes to somebody looking at your work, giving you a shot to do something else. Spend your money on production design, on costumes, on locations, really coming up with great shots and figure out how you're going to tell that story that you're about to shoot as creatively as possible.
Right.
There's so many cameras that can capture a great image now that, for me, it's more about lenses now than it is cameras. Like, I'll shoot with any of the major brands right now. It's like,
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. The image quality is awesome.
Yeah.
On the bodies.
Yeah, for sure. You don't have external recorders like we did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
With, 200 feet of cable trying to move that stuff around for us, and it's so much easier now.
Do you have a recommendation? Like, if somebody was thinking, I want to start making my own movies right now and just sort of get into it, would you? Like, I know you're because I see your Instagram stuff, but you shoot on Sony cameras. Is that a favorite of yours right now? Or?
Yeah, for stills. I mean, they shoot great video. We've used the A7S and the A7R on lots of stuff. I mean, those cameras are amazing.
Do you use those on your shows sometimes too? Oh, yeah? Oh, my God, that's awesome.
They're so tiny, and they fit in places that we just can't get the big cameras in sometimes. So.
Right, and they match up with the, what do you normally shoot on Reds? Or?
Usually on ARRI Minis, on Magicians, and
but then you'll have a
Alexas.
Sony or a Canon or something like that? And
we use Red cameras too sometimes.
Wow.
You just mix them up, and I've been lucky to work with some great colorists who can match those different brands seamlessly.
What a world, right?
You never know.
Yeah, and you would never think that, even going back 10 years, that was even possible.
No,
I mean, because we've been covering this stuff, and of course we've had to purchase tons of cameras over the years too, but I think this stuff was hinted at by these camera manufacturers, but we've got there now, haven't we?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, GH5 or the A7S. I mean, those are far better than the cameras I used on features 10 years ago when I was first starting.
Crazy.
Miles better.
So it's not the camera.
No, it's not. It's honestly not. It's figure out how you're going to shoot it and focus on that. It's the camera's just a tool.
Are there specific camera techniques? Do you try to define your style when you're just getting started, or do you just try to go for simplicity and get the basics right?
I think I always let the script tell me what to do.
Okay.
It's you're telling a story, and I think your cinematography should really focus on trying to transport that story forward without being ostentatious or intrusive in any way. You want to really make that a seamless marriage between the two. Right. And
when you get handed a script for Arrow and it's a 3-page fight scene or something like that, or it's a 5-minute fight scene in a 40-minute show, how do you shoot that? Do you go to like a bunch of awesome action movies and you say, well, they didn't,
No, it's all sort of driven by the scene description. What do they want to, how do they want to start it, how do they want to end it, and then we got to find a place to do it. Yeah. And once we find that, then it all sort of falls into place. It's like, okay, we can have 9 hours to shoot the sequence in, so great. That means probably 40, 50 setups that we can do if we really hurry, and you sort of just back into it that way. It's just watching some of these. It's
impressive.
Yeah, well, it's those were crazy nights.
Do you have the fight scenes rehearsed?
Yes.
And they know where they're going movement wise.
Yeah.
They don't think about where the cameras are, and then they get onto set, and then you place the cameras. Is that the way?
Actually, the stunt department on Arrow was amazing at doing previses. Yeah. So they would shoot their own version of the action.
Wow. Okay.
And then they would send that out to the producers and ourselves, and they would say, "Hey, what do you guys think of this? This is what we'll do if you guys like it." And then we would give notes and work together with them to try and make it happen on the day.
That's amazing.
And the previses, some of the previses they should put online. They're amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're like great short films.
I'm such a huge fan of this show and comic books and all that stuff. So it's just really cool to talk with people that have been a part of creating all that. Yeah. What's next for you? I know that you've got a show that hasn't aired yet. What's it called?
Yep. That's I finished an NBC series called The In Between. Okay. So it's gonna. I'm not sure when it's going to camera to be, or when they're going to air it. I think it's May. Okay. June, something like that.
Okay. Did you shoot a bunch of episodes or just the pilot episode?
I shot the pilot last spring, and then I couldn't do the series as I was doing Magicians, but I got brought on at the end to finish up the show. Okay. So I did an episode there and then a bunch of reshoots.
Okay. So is it fun to bounce from different shows, or do you want to get hooked up on one show again like you were on with Arrow?
Oh, I like changing it up. Anything that challenges you and pushes your limits and is good. Awesome. Yeah. So I like the change.
There's a lot of TV work in town.
Yeah.
A lot to keep you busy. But I'm wondering if you've got a movie that you're sort of working on or working towards, or if that's an interest of yours.
I'd love to get into movies. It's I don't have one in particular lined up or anything. I'm sort of booked now until the end or mid-November. Okay. So I just freelance. You just take one job at a time. But I'm always looking for the next thing.
Awesome.
And if I could do a movie, I'd do it in a heartbeat, for sure.
Is there, a particular influence of yours that you would sort of encourage any up-and-coming cinematographers to kind of look out for?
Well, I think there's like arm length people that influenced me a lot. So Glenn Winter and Gord Verhoeven were the two DPs from Arrow that I think I learned the most from.
Did Glenn Winter work on Battlestar Galactica? Seems like a familiar name.
No, I think that was Stephen McNutt.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Glenn did Smallville and sort of Gord actually. But and then in the broader sense, I think there's a lot of media online of cinematographers sharing their stories and their secrets, and listen to them. They have a lot of great things to say, and it can help you avoid missteps along the way. I love Roger Deakins. I try to listen to anything he's got to say.
He's a genius.
He has such a variety of work under his belt, and always, it's going to be amazing whatever he does. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Bruno Debonel. He did Amelie back in
That was great.
Whatever year that was, that show is just still a great benchmark for cinematography. Robert Richardson did all of Oliver Stone stuff. I mean, huge influence back in the day as well. And then Vittorio Storaro and Apocalypse Now was a huge early influence for me too. What he did in that show to help you down that psychological journey is just stunning.
Awesome.
You know, so those are kind of the main guys that I can think of right now anyway.
That's good. So don't worry about the camera and check out some of the masters and do a lot of YouTubing and learn and just go out and do it. Yeah. Just make mistakes, and you can actually fix a lot of your mistakes later nowadays. So it's a good time to be doing this. Awesome. Corey, thank you so much for being on the
for
show.
having me.
Corey Robson,
Pleasure.
everybody. Thank you. All right, you guys, it's time right now for a buried treasure. Back in 2012, a fantastic action role-playing game called Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning came out from Big Huge Games and 38 Studios, and it was a disaster, all of it. Lots of people went bankrupt and people lost their jobs, and the game didn't sell enough, but it was ridiculously fun. And Shelf, at Pat Fingus on Twitter, recommended that I take a look at this game again. Now, recently, Kingdoms of Amalur has been back in the news because THQ Nordic has bought the rights. They'll probably remaster this game. It was exceptional. It was a massive title that went on and on and on. It reminded me a little bit of a World of Warcraft type of experience, because you just go into these beautiful lands and underground caverns and environments, and you meet all of these different characters. But the combat was, not quite God of War, but it was still satisfying. It was super fun. So it just felt expansive and huge, and like every time that you thought you'd sort of understood the area, the map just kept expanding and getting bigger and bigger. Clearly a very ambitious title. Todd McFarlane had done some artwork for this thing. They'd gotten some really big names on this title to make it an exceptional experience, and it was supposed to be the beginning of something, and unfortunately the costs just killed the studio and killed the brand. And we all thought that this game was going to be dead, and we were never going to hear anything about Kingdoms of Amalur ever again, except maybe in a buried treasure segment like this one. But apparently there's a heartbeat in this franchise, and we might get more. It's in the news again, so it's worth checking out, and I think it was a great suggestion because it's absolutely a buried treasure. All right, you guys, that was a great look back at Kingdoms of Amalur, but there are new games that we've got to review, and here's one that put a great big smile on my face and also on my daughter's face. It's Yoshi's Crafted World. You can never tell with the games that come out in March if they're going to knock your socks off or not, but one that certainly has is Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch. I guess you can never count Nintendo out. You can always sort of count on them to deliver something that exceeds expectations. Well, that's exactly what they have done here with Yoshi's Crafted World, and I have to say that I haven't enjoyed a game that has focused on Yoshi as much as this one since Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo, which is one of my favorite games for that platform, and it's one of my favorite games that Nintendo has released. And so I always jump into the Yoshi's games, and Yoshi's Woolly World was kind of fun, and I liked Yoshi's Story 64, and I've enjoyed them, but they haven't taken my breath away until this game. This game is a masterpiece. The whole idea kind of looks like people at Nintendo and the development studio Goodfeel were playing a lot of Little Big Planet and maybe looking at what Media Molecule has been doing with Dreams. It's almost like everything has been crafted out of cardboard and paper and taped together and pastel crayons and all that stuff. So it's extrapolating on the pastel design of Yoshi's Island, this sort of 3D construct of Yoshi's Story 64, the Woolly World kind of mechanics, but Goodfeel has taken all of these design aesthetics to the nth degree and has crafted a cinematic wonder. It almost looks like some kids on YouTube found a bunch of the Yoshi amiibo and built a whole sort of video sequence with them all. Everything kind of looks photoreal and wonderful and so expertly crafted, and I think it's almost like a bit of a commercial too for Labo and for what you can do with the magic of cardboard and your imagination. You're, of course, on the hunt for a gem, a magical gem. And what you're trying to do is get back to your Yoshi's Island, and you're collecting a bunch of gemstones. And what they've done is they've taken the egg-throwing mechanic that Yoshi has had in a bunch of his titles, and they've given us all kinds of layers in each of these beautiful worlds that they've crafted for us, no pun intended, to hurl in different directions. So you can hurl into the background, and the game will actually focus on objects as your cursor sort of tracks what you should be shooting at, or you can hurl at objects that are in the foreground. And so that constantly gives you this sort of hide-and-seek attitude as you're progressing through the game. The levels are so intelligently and intricately and beautifully designed, you're going to want to go and explore them, and you're going to want to find the little red coins that you might have missed, or hunt down the souvenirs for the little cute cardboard robots that ask you to find little extras for you. And then, of course, you're going to get into boss fights. None of the boss fights are that particularly difficult, but they're enjoyable and rewarding, and the challenge ramps up nice and easily. But then, of course, because of all the different sort of mechanics involved in finding all the secrets, there's lots and lots and lots of game to give back to you. What you can do after you've beat the level is you can go back and hunt down all of these little poochies that have gone missing inside of the game world, and you're going to get rewarded with new flowers, which will unlock new stages and new areas for you. And as strange a comparison as this is, it reminded me a lot of the original Sonic the Hedgehog, which was a super fast action platformer, and you would whip past all kinds of little secrets and little collectibles, and that's what Yoshi's Crafted World has done. I can't say anything bad about this game. It certainly, maybe isn't as ambitious a title as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey. I would say that the costumes that you do find in this game, they're a nice treat, but sometimes they stick out in weird proportions around Yoshi's body, so they make some of the jumps a little trickier. And speaking of those jumps, because the mechanics are all weird, and we know that Yoshi has not only the egg throwing mechanic, but the floaty jump kind of sequence, sometimes making those jumps becomes a little punishing, a little difficult. I noticed while I was playing and trying to time my jumps just right, my daughter kept putting up her leg, and she was just getting into it. I'd press the button, and she'd put up her leg until I would make the jump, and she was getting into it just watching it, and she played some of the earlier stuff as well. Actually, I asked Ruby what her thoughts on this game are, so let's hear from her right now.
There's a lot of things to do in it. Like, when we thought we were finished the whole game, we weren't even finished at all. Like, there's a lot more things to do. And one of the levels that I really like, you could go in like big Yoshi costume and then punch things with like these boxer gloves they look like, but they was actually just his hands. I liked how there was not like other games, how there was like the same bad guy in every level. I liked how there's different bad guys in each level, and some bad guys that you couldn't even defeat, you just had to dodge them.
This is an absolute treasure. I know it's at a weird time. I know that there's rumors of new Switch hardware potentially out later this year, and everybody's kind of waiting for that next sort of Zelda caliber masterpiece. I think we're going to be waiting a little while for that, but don't ignore this incredible game. I think this is as deserving of your attention as anything that Nintendo has put out. Yoshi's Crafted World, for me, is an absolute masterpiece. It's a beautiful game, an incredibly difficult one to put down. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Absolutely phenomenal. All right, so we had our kids game moment right there, and yes, Yoshi's Crafted World is exquisite, and it really surprised me. I was jumping between the Division 2, which I was playing on this beautiful machine, by the way, that MSI sent me out to review. It's the MSI P65 laptop. And it handles games incredibly well. I really put it through its paces while I was down in Mexico City last week. It has a 1070 graphics card in there from NVIDIA, and the Division 2 looks insane on this. That's the game that I mostly played. I played some Apex Legends as well. But I got back and I started playing Division 2 again on my Xbox One X, and I was like, God, I miss seeing it on this laptop, which was crazy. But I was jumping between the Division 2 and I was jumping into Yoshi's Crafted World, and it was a great counterbalance because it was so intense in the Division 2, and then I would just kind of chill out and just appreciate the beauty of Yoshi, and my kid loved it. But let's move from the kids' game to a mature movie. This is a review of Us.
What are you people?
It's us.
So you guys, I just got out of Us. This is the new Jordan Peele movie. I saw it a little bit late. It came out last week, and I didn't get a chance to see it early. But I'm very glad that I got a chance to get out into the theaters and to see this film. Jordan Peele, of course, rocked our socks with Get Out. And Us is a thriller / horror film. My mind is really, really effed up right now. It's very twisted, and I was watching a lot of this movie with my shoulders up like this and my spine all sort of twisted, and I just felt like, oh my God, what am I? It was so creepy. It was so weird.
Now the cops are already on their way. Hey!
It's about this family that sees mirror images of themselves. They just kind of show up at their door. And there's a much broader story as to why that happens and where they're from that sort of, unfolds before you as you're watching it. But you're like, what the fuck is happening? The whole movie, you're just like, what is going on? It stars Lupita Nyong'o and Winston Duke and Elizabeth Moss and lots of other good character actors. Introduces some young actors in here. Everybody is very good in this movie. And the shadow variants of these actors are all murderous and psychotic, and they're wearing these red jumpsuits and they have gold scissors. There's all of this iconic imagery throughout this thing, and it's shot so wonderfully. I mean, Hitchcock would just be standing up with a standing ovation, applauding the look and feel and atmosphere of this movie, and the soundtrack is killer, and the performances are really good too. Like, there's a nice blend of sardonic sense of humor, and everybody's kind of laughing off like how silly and preposterous that there could be any danger here, and the relationships that we see, not just between Winston Duke and Lupita Nyong'o, who are married, but also Elizabeth Moss and her husband. Funny and biting and sarcastic and truthful and just clever. It's just clever. The whole goddamn thing is clever. It's just really well put together. And yeah, it's completely unnerving. And I'm trying to think of the reasons why. I'm trying to explain the movie. Like, I'm trying to understand why Jordan Peele did this, but I feel like that was the intention. Just toy with the audience and just say, who cares? We've never seen anything like this before. And truly, for big chunks of this movie, I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Can't believe you kept all this inside for so long.
I don't think it's a perfect film. I don't think it's as successful as Get Out because it doesn't wrap up for you. It's not all tidily assembled. You're still scratching your head at the conclusion of it all. But I can tell you that the emotions it evokes are incredibly palpable and powerful and worth the ticket price. And you're watching a filmmaker just kind of explore some darker stuff, some things that, he's probably been kicking around in his mind for a while. Jordan Peele is a very, very fascinating individual, I do want to see him stretch out of this kind of horror world and this thriller world. I do want to see what else he's got up his sleeve, but he does feel like a really cool, fresh new voice with these dramatic thrillers, which is cool, I love that this comedian just erupted on the scene and has blown our minds, and this movie's already done very well at the box office, justifiably so. It's a really crazy 2-hour escape from the normal world, and you're certainly going to be looking into shadows as you walk out of here. I'm trying to kind of interpret it and give you what I think is going on in there without spoiling too much of the plot, but maybe it's some kind of like contemplative look at, we all have an evil side to us that's latent and it's there, and sometimes we catch glimpses of it when we're looking in the mirror. It's dark, it's twisted, it's a lot of fun, and it's so well put together. I'm going to give Us an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, we are moving on very far away from Yoshi's Crafted World now. We're going to play a little bit of Mortal Kombat 11. The online beta is out there right now. Is it a private beta, Blake? Oh, okay, so you had to order the game or whatever. Okay, so we're going to get a little taste of this. It's incredibly violent, and our friend Andrew, who is here from Edmonton, is going to get up and play it with us. Welcome, Andrew, to the show. How are you, my friend? Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Come and grab a seat. And so what brings you into Vancouver?
Well,
Apart from Mortal Kombat 11. It might be a bit loud in the room, Blake.
I'm here with a friend. We drove out from Edmonton.
Yep.
And okay, let's see here.
Oh, this is the attract mode, so
okay.
you don't have to be good yet. But pretty soon, you got to be really good because the comment that we get over and over again is the person that's sitting beside me playing the game, not very good.
No, and you know what? You're going to get a lot of those comments. A lot of those.
No, I know. But, okay, so you drove out from Edmonton just...
Yeah, with my friend, just for a road trip with him and his daughters, and it's been great.
Awesome.
I mean, I love Vancouver. It's one of the best places on the planet.
Very
for
cool.
Sure.
And I love Edmonton. I always get out there and visit my family. I was out there last month, and we had a great time.
Right on. Was it super chilly when you were out there last month?
It was crazy cold. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was. I felt like Cartman when he puts on all of the jackets and everything. I couldn't really move when I was, but it was great. Okay, so let's take a look at Mortal Kombat 11, and you guys know the drill. It's let's play and chat. If you've got any questions for us, same with anybody in the crowd as well. Move. Oh yeah, you want to go into the tower. So go to Conquer.
Conquer. Okay.
Okay, and then you go to Classic Towers.
Classic Towers.
All right, so let's take a look at this incredible looking video game. I've played a little bit of it, and it's beautiful and really gory.
The last time I played a fighting game was in '93
Okay.
when the first Mortal Kombat came out.
You'll be fine.
All right, let's see.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ed Boon and his team is really aware that lots of people haven't played for a while, and they still want to attract all of those people. That's the amazing thing about this franchise is that it does lose people as people have other interests and go, away from it, but it always is an inclusive game, too.
They just keep upping the ante.
Yes.
Like, it gets more and more violent, which, I mean,
yeah,
for a lot of people, that's right up their alley.
Totally. I think you got to hit the X button. There you go. Choose your character.
Let's go.
Whichever one you want.
Sure.
And then if you need to pause and look at some of the moves, that's totally acceptable, right? Right, audience? It's all good? Okay. Let's see.
Scarlet splash damage.
JBJ, Blaze, and TFA says Us is a horror film. It's a horror film, but it was a thriller, too. It was hard for me to just put it into a category. Because there was, I don't know, there were many layers to that movie. It was very cool. When will the rumored Shaolin Monks mode of MK11 be announced? I don't know. I can't even remember Shaolin Monks. I know that was. Do you remember that? Was it a mode or was it the separate game that they made? Yeah. I can't remember that. Johnny Millennium is in the crowd. You got a question? Johnny, you got a question?
Round one. Fight.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see the poster. Oh. Okay. Yeah, because that's coming up very soon. I didn't see it. Oh my God! Yeah, we're gonna get all of those things. Okay, got a question from Ty Fish. Question: have you tried? I saw you talking about this Battlefield 5 Firestorm yet. It's not a big battle royale. You're not a big battle royale fan, but it's stellar. I have not played Firestorm yet. I've deleted the game off of my hard drive, so I have to download the whole thing and check it out. But I will. I definitely will. I'm working on a couple of Switch reviews, and I am dipping my toes into Sekiro and being abused by that game. I'll have some thoughts on that soon. Also, some thoughts on MLB The Show 19, which is a nice variety. We like to have lots of variety on this show. Are you playing a Scarlet?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. She has some kind of blood attack.
Come on.
Yeah.
Round two.
Oh.
Fight.
Let's see if we got any other questions in here. Is Get Out on Crave? Does anybody know if Las Vegas is wanting to find that movie? You got to watch it. I don't think it's on Netflix, but you got to watch that film. It's incredible. Let's see if we got any other things. Oh, we want Manu Bennett on the show again. That would be great. I love that guy. He was super cool. I kept running into him. I'd run into him at the airport because he'd fly in to shoot, and then I'd run into him at San Diego Comic-Con. And he got onto that Viacom fantasy show, and he was shooting in New Zealand there for a little while there. Okay. I missed that question, Sam111. Sam I am 111, but that was very good. Let's see what we got here.
All right, right. Somebody has to help me out. How do you block?
If Ty Fish wants Stephen Amell on the show, we definitely want to get that. Jamie Andrews with E3, 3 months away. What are EPN's plans for E3? Well, we're definitely going to do some events in the space here where we will watch the press conferences, and then we'll do some streaming about all of that stuff. And then we're going to go down to E3 and shoot some interviews like we normally do. So it'll be somewhat similar to what we did last year, but we were in EXP last year, and now we have the VFS Cafe, so it should be pretty fun. And I know Johnny Millennium's going to have some pretty big videos too during E3 week. Yeah, planning for all that. It's crazy E3, right? Now it's Google. And it's it's Apple getting into this, and it's a lot of streaming. Right. Well, E3, Johnny's asking, thanks for the good questions, Johnny Millennium from Happy Console Gamer. E3 was crafted to be a retailer exhibit show at the beginning, right? And then the press made up a chunk of why it was important. And now that the retailer equation is kind of being taken out of there, I mean, they still sell games at Walmart, but we all know that EB Games and GameStop are kind of getting hammered and transitioning to other toys and collectibles and all that stuff. I think that the retail component of video games and the importance of the show to show these titles off to the retailers is kind of shifting away. And also, as we saw with Nintendo Directs, the publishers can really control how these things get messaged. We saw that EA didn't fare so well with their press conference last year, and I think they're taking a step back this year. But Bethesda's all on board with having their big event, even though they've got a lot of apologies to make, probably about Fallout 76. I think why E3 is important, I've been saying this for a decade, is that the industry needs to collect people to celebrate itself. It needs to kind of show the world that it's an art form. And I think that E3 should be looked at not just as a way to hype and sell games, but to celebrate games in a kind of like a con festival type of way. Kind of like bringing the world together in an event that is very focused around the broadcast output of Hollywood. That's why it makes sense in Los Angeles to kind of show that games matter culturally. And I think if we remove that option, if it just becomes about selling to an audience over and over and over again, and we don't kind of, share that crowd, we're sort of missing the opportunity. And honestly, that's the opportunity that companies like Apple and Google and to some extent what Tommy's doing with Intellivision are all kind of looking at. They want to open the floodgates and let as many people in as possible. It's not about just joining one sort of, I guess Intellivision doesn't quite fit into that, but it's not just about having one piece of hardware to access this stuff. Microsoft, I think, is taking some big strides that way. So I think that E3 is important, but maybe it's more important on a sort of a festival kind of way. With, are we seeing some heavy violence? You got what you got. You got what you came for with Mortal Kombat 11. All right. What can we expect for Friday on EPN? Happy Console Gamer, maybe. I think Johnny's going to be a guest host on the show again very soon. What are you doing on April Fool's Day? You want to come here on April Fool's Day? Okay, cool. All right, so Johnny will be here April 1st, which is cool. We might have another guest on that day as well. But on Friday, we have somebody that Corey might have worked with. Dan Payne is going to be on the show. He's an actor, and he just played King Shark on The Flash. And what was cool is we had David Hayter on here not too long ago, and David Hayter did the voice for King Shark, and this is the actor that actually played the physical version of the character when he becomes human. But he's done tons of other shows. He worked on Smallville as well. But he's got a really long resume, and he did a great job as King Shark. And I'm super psyched to have him on the show and talk about being a working actor in Vancouver and jumping from all of these different projects. So that's going to be a lot of fun on Friday. Question from Ramses the Great. We'll get questions from ancient Egyptian leaders here, which is awesome. Thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Pro? I think we need a little more horsepower out of a new Switch. I don't think that's a bad decision at all. I'm a happy PlayStation 4 Pro owner, and I'm a happy Xbox One X owner. I think that if we can juice the fidelity of these experiences, it's fun to do that, you know? I mean, that's why people upgrade to better graphics cards on PC all the time. I think one of the things holding up the Switch is that we don't get the very best looking fidelity titles, you know, that these developers have worked their butts off to kind of craft like a Red Dead Redemption 2 type of experience being ported to the Switch. If you come with better horsepower on a Switch Pro, suddenly that equation is nullified, and we might see titles like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Nintendo Switch, and you know, that's just good for everybody. That gives you know, these developers that have slaved over these incredible games more people, and it gives Nintendo more opportunities to, you know, bring bigger and better video game experiences to their platform. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I also think a lower cost Switch Lite makes sense as well. I know it gets a little bit confusing on the consumer end. It's like, where do I go and what am I being closed off of if I don't get the very best model? But I think it's worked. It's working in the phone industry where Samsung has like 5 different models of their phones out right now, and iPhone's got a bunch. So yeah, I think
have a Samsung.
And you have a Samsung, yeah, but you
good.
got to make the choice though, of
do.
which one you want to go for. I think
Definitely
the Switch makes sense. Question: when will consoles just become modular and succeed where Steam boxes failed? That's from Sam IM111. Well, Google and Microsoft. So this is going to be the last question, guys. Google and Microsoft and other companies out there are betting on the end of consoles and just being able to access all of this content through smart TVs and phones and all that stuff. But that's a big topic which we will pick up again on a later date. Thank you, Andrew.
It was awesome.
How did he do?
So much.
How did he do? Was he pretty good? Yes? All right. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new rundown for you. And on Friday, we've got Dan Payne in the studio for another episode of EP Live. We shoot it at the VFS Cafe at 390 West Hastings. So please come on down and watch the show live if you can, or watch it right here. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Play forever.